What's up? It's Marco back on the Sage of Soccer channel, and we just got done with all the festive fixtures of the Premier League, so I figured it's a good time to run through how every team is doing throughout this year. So, doing all 20 teams in one video seems like lots. I'm going to start with the bottom 5 teams who are really in the relegation battle, next 5, till we get to the top. So, starting things off, I want to talk about Sheffield United. In 20th place, they are joint third worst defense, a really weak midfield, and attack that does nothing, and right now they are on pace to not even reach double-digit points. Yeah, it is a bad thing over in Sheffield. Obviously, they have the injury to Jack McConnell, but I mean, when you look at all the bottom teams like Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Leeds, they've all dealt with center back injuries, and they're doing just fine. I'll run through their personnel. Aaron Ramsdale does not look good. He's been really not a Premier League quality keeper when you just look around the league, where you see guys like Fabianski and people like Vicente Guaita who are basically average. Like Aaron Ramsdale does not live up to that quality. Only maybe Matt Ryan and Jordan Pickford, who are number ones, who have really had as bad of a year. I guess if you throw in Kepa, but he got replaced already. I guess so did Matt Ryan. On the defense, John Egan does not look as good as he did last year. Chris Basham, he's looking a lot worse this year going forward, and Robinson has not done well at the back, filling in for O'Connell. For the fullbacks, Baldock and Stevens, I think they've taken a huge step back. They're probably the biggest disappointment of the year for that team. Gone from some really good center backs or fullbacks to really weak part of the team. Weak defensively, not getting forward that well, just real liabilities, and looking like championship level players. Keeping with the championship level theme, Lundstrom, Norwood, Fleck, they all look pretty bad this year. And up front, McBurney, Sharp, Nusay, they've all just been awful as number 9s. Like, just can't get any goals. I would say that Sanderberg, I think he's looked good. And you've seen flashes from Oliver Burke, Dave McGoldrick, Ethan Ampadu, but it's been bad all around. I think a big problem for them has been recruitment. Since arriving in the Premier League, I mean, their only great signing has been Senator Purge. I like Oliver Burke. John Bogle has shown something, but this is a team that brought in Revel Morrison and Jack Rodwell. Phil Jagielka brought him back. And while other teams could really strengthen, we'll get to Fulham later and what they've done. This is a team that has stayed with that team that brought them up in the championship that I don't even believe they won. I think Norwich won the championship that year. And it's honestly a bit of a League One team if you think about it. And yeah, they need to get recruitment down. They need to get better results out of the players they have. And just overall really disappointing for Sheffield. I think sticking with the 3-5-2, or the 5-3-2, I should say, has been a pretty bad decision. There's just a real lack of width. That's the fullbacks have been very poor. And McConnell being out especially, that's just led to a terrible attack. With the defense being leaky as well, I think switching to a 4-back would probably be a good idea. I think a 4-2-3-1 would probably be pretty good with the personnel they have, or maybe a 4-4-2 when McGoldrick can do like a shadow striker 10 type of role. Oliver Burke and John Bogle have shown enough athleticism to play out wide. They'd have to make some signings, and yeah, I still don't see any way they can stay up, but it really says something that some of the best they've looked all year is when they've gone down to 10 men and had to switch to that 4-4-1, and they had some width in their attack. They got some movement, and they were able to get a draw. They looked half decent against Aston Villa when they did that earlier in the year. But yeah, just a terrible start to the season for them, and not much hope for them to stay up unless something really changed in the winter. In 19th, we've got West Brom, and honestly, if you told me at the beginning of the year, 8 points, and they brought in Big Sam, I'd say, yeah, probably about right. But what I didn't expect is how they got the 8 points. But, yeah, it's kind of weird, because they've gotten points against Chelsea, Liverpool, and City. And when you look at how they play, I feel like this team has a bit more talent than they show. When you're a team that's able to play up to the level of competition, that means the talent is there. And I mean, I don't see it really in the team, but just as a unit, they have shown moments. They were good enough to get promoted, but I think there's like a lack of competitive fire, maybe, or maybe Bilic was just a poor manager. I'm not sure, but something's there, but it's not showing. I mean, they've had a lot of times where they've had some great first halves, but they've just blown in the second half. Like had that 3-0 lead against Chelsea that they blew. They had a really good start against Everton earlier in the year, and yeah, they've a lot of times when they play, it's one really good half, and then they just blow it. So yeah, it's just really weird to see there, and yeah, I can see why Bilic got sacked, and Big Sam's gonna have to work his magic for them to stay up. For personnel-wise, I mean, it seems kind of destined for relegation. There's no proven goal scorer in the team, a weak midfield, and a championship-level defense. Sam Johnston has played above expectations, and I have liked Conor Gallagher, but overall it's a pretty bad team, and Big Sam's going to have to make some pretty good signings if they really realistically want to stay up. I think they need to make some signings. And yeah, it's not looking good for West Brom. Down in the 18th, we've got Fulham, who are improving every week. They have owners who are willing to invest, and they've basically done everything that they can do to stay up, but still in 18th place. They do have some games in hand, but I think at the bottom of the league, that's not as important as at the top. It's more down to you being able to win than it's more picking up points than not dropping points, I guess, if that makes any sense. So, I mean, Fulham, going into the year, they had a team that really wasn't ready for the Premier League, but they were willing to spend to make the squad better. They brought in Anthony Robinson and Tosin Adarabioyo for two really good signings. They brought in Aina, Anderson, and Areola on loan, 5 A's at the back. Anthony Adarabioyo, Aina, Anderson, and Areola. I noticed that when I was making this, I was like, it's kind of weird. Pretty good midfield of Anguissa, Lamina and Harrison Reed. They're pretty solid at the base of the midfield. Tom Kearney and Ruben Loftus-Cheek have shown some good moments going forward. Adam Lookman has been great on loan. Man, I'm screwing up names with Fulham. Cordova, Reed, and Carvalho, they've been pretty decent up front, filling in for Mitrovic, he's really been the only real disappointment for this Fulham team, his pretty poor form. But overall, the team improved a lot. They have a shot of staying up. That being said, they're still in the relegation zone, and I think if they want to stay up, they're really going to have to get some goals. Mitrovic hasn't been great. Cordova, Reed, I'm not sure if he's a true number 9. Carvalho is definitely not. So striker is going to be a priority. Maybe they spend on... I don't think they could be able to spend on a Tony, maybe an Adam Armstrong. I'm not sure, but going to have to get goals from somewhere if they're going to want to stay up. I think Scott Parker has done a good job finding the right team. He's been experimenting with the back line a lot, getting players in different positions. I think he's been doing well, and hopefully just get that little bit more back they need to stay up. Feeling pretty good about Fulham. Even if they do end up going down, I feel like they've been pretty good. In 17th place, we've got Brighton and Hove Albion, and you watch them and they look great, and then you just look at the table. 17th place, only 3 points above Fulham, who have 2 games in hand. And yeah, it's a really talented team, but I think their biggest problem is putting the ball in the back of the net. Mupay is the only player for them who has more than 2 goals, and I feel like he's been very inconsistent, missing a lot of clear-cut chances, and he's not somebody that I feel like you can really rely on to keep you up. Danny Welbeck has shown some flashes. I think he has been pretty decent, but he's never been a 10-goal striker in his career. Connolly, I feel like he's going to be a really good player, but you can't have him really be reliable in a relegation battle. And Trossard is another player who he's got to step up and show his class, because he's really good, but his goal contribution just isn't enough. And I don't think I realized how much this Brighton team was relying on Glenn Murray, and he was really keeping them going. So yeah, up top, things aren't looking too great, and man, if those goals don't start coming, they could be in real trouble. On the positive end, the midfield is looking pretty good. Basuma's had a bit of a breakout year. He's probably going to get a big move after the season. Lallana has been pretty good for them. Pascal Gross is still pretty solid. Going into the defense, the fullbacks have been great, with Tariq Lamptey and Sterling Marks looking like a top 10 fullback pairing in the league. That is a pretty tough task to get, but those two have been great. And even Voltman, when he has to fill in, he's been good for them as well. I think their biggest disappointment has probably been their center backs. Dunk, Ben White, and Webster. They've been making a lot more mistakes than they should and really haven't been showing their talent. Ben White came into the season with a lot of hype, but I really don't see that with him. He had a great year last year in the championship, but that was in the championship. Dwight Gale has had great years in the championship. Patrick Bamford had great years in the championship before this year, and we hadn't expected anything going into this year. You have to prove it at the Premier League level if you want to be a good Premier League player. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I just haven't been too impressed with the defense. They're going to have to step up a bit more if they want to stay up at this point, which is weird because I thought this was a Brighton team that had the talent to avoid being in a relegation battle, and I still believe they do. It's just poor results. Also in goal, they've had a weird situation where Matt Ryan's been dropped, putting an unprepared Sanchez into the team. I think there's something going on behind the scenes. It's basically confirmed, but it's still not a good situation. So for Graham Potter, I like how this team's playing. I've sung the praise of Tariq Lamptey, Sully March, Voltman, Basuma. There are a bunch of players who are looking good, but results do matter, and I think they need to get a striker who can score goals for them in this system, or they need to go to a more defensive system. It's a bit of a drag that you're forced to do this when you have a team like Burnley above you, but Burnley is above you with less talent. That really shows what it is, and they're either going to have to bring in a striker who can score or go into a more defensive system. That was the one that they did to play really well against Liverpool, but at the same time they did play well against United and Chelsea in their more offensive system, so I don't think you can really judge that off of that small of a sample size. But yeah, Brighton, it's a really disappointing season for them so far, and if something doesn't change, they're in line to go down. Last team we're going to talk about is Burnley. A terrible start, but they're finally looking back like the Burnley we know and love. Yeah. Burnley. So a terrible start to the season, which did make it seem like they were going to go down and make the Premier League a whole lot better. Unfortunately, they'd be going down, but I think what happened was the short break in the summer led to the defenses coming back unorganized. There were such high-scoring games. We didn't even get a draw in the first 2 weeks of the season. So yeah, it was very weird for this time for this Burnley team. Just defensive teams in general were struggling. Sheffield United still haven't recovered, but yeah, Burnley and Sheffield, they were struggling early, but Burnley were able to regain their form. I think something crucial to that team, Nick Pope has gotten really into his form. He's been saving them some points with a couple of really nice performances and showing that he is an England international and honestly probably should be starting for them at this point. James Tarkowski and Ben Mee's partnership has been solid again, and their backline has really gotten back to being Burnley. Loden and Taylor have been solid at the fullback position, and Long and Bardsley have also filled in very well when called upon. In the midfield, despite missing Jack Cork, Westwood and Brownhill have done pretty well to keep the backline protected. Have been pretty disappointed with their widemen. Brady and McNeil especially thought they could have been a bit better, but it is kind of hard to show your talent in a team like Burnley. Up front, Chris Wood, Ashley Barnes, Vidra, Rodriguez, they've all been pretty disappointing. I have liked what I've seen from Chris Wood lately, and I am still a big fan of Jay Rodriguez, but again, pretty underwhelming, but again, they're playing at Burnley. For Sean Dyche, we can see he did a good job with keeping the team organized and keeping the squad together after a rough start, and doing that all with a real lack of funds, which is pretty impressive. You respect Sean Dyche, I don't like him. You hear this? It's the sound of everybody being excited that Burnley's staying up. Great job for him, just doing what he does with a great budget, with a tight budget, but I still don't like him, But yeah, that's all the teams. Seems like right now it's going to be Sheffield and West Brom going down, and unless Brighton and Fulham can get something going, one of them too. So yeah, interesting things to the bottom of the league. That's all I've talked about. See ya.